Hi, Todd Dugan here with a video on swing plane direction. Okay, this is something that TrackMan measures, swing direction. It was originally called horizontal swing plane, so it's the horizontal direction of the swing plane through the impact zone relative to the target line. So in a swing of any force, the club head or sweet spot will swing in plane. So in a swing of little force, maybe when you're putting, you could try to keep the club head moving directly over a straight line on the ground. But when you're standing to the side of the ball and your plane is inclined, so not vertical but tilted in, kind of like this plane board you see here, then when you get some force going here, your sweet spot will swing in plane on a tilted or inclined plane. A music CD makes a great example of a circular arc within a tilted plane. That's how your club head travels in a swing of any force in plane on a flat surface through the impact zone. And there is a direction to this plane. The direction of the plane is illustrated by where the plane intersects with the ground. We could call that the baseline of the plane, and it forms a straight line on the ground there. Now when you swing in plane, the shaft will always point to the baseline of the plane. I have a training aid here called the Smart Stick. There's a laser that points out of the tip here, and you'll see as I slide this along the inclined plane that the laser dot will point to a straight line on the ground, which is the baseline of that plane. So that straight line is indicating the direction horizontally of the swing plane. Now, it's important to realize that the club head is not traveling in that direction the whole time. It's only traveling in that direction at the low point, the bottom of the arc. So as the club head rotates or orbits me on an inclined plane, it's changing directions the whole time, both relative to the horizon and the target line. So to hit a straight shot, a true straight shot that starts on line and doesn't curve off line, we need the club head to be traveling directly along the target line at impact. So the only time then we would want our swing plane line direction to also be in line with the target for a straight shot is when we're hitting at the bottom of the arc. A good example of that might be with the putter, where you could definitely strike right at the bottom of the arc, and you can still swing in plane as you see here, the club head changing directions the whole time, moving really within a straight line because the plane is a straight line, a flat surface. The driver would be a club as well that you could effectively strike at the bottom of the arc. We'd call that a 0-degree attack angle with TrackMan. So that means that the club head is traveling parallel to the ground at impact. It also would be traveling parallel to the plane itself. So if your plane was in line with the target and you strike at the bottom of the arc, then you have a 0-degree attack angle, 0-degree horizontal swing plane or swing direction line, and also a 0-degree path of the club head. That's relative to the target line, right on track. 3 zeros. A fourth one for a straight shot would be a square club face. So the club face is also pointing down this target line, and thus the club head is square to the plane at impact. Of course, we also need center impact so the club face doesn't twist. And if you produce those 3 conditions at impact, you will hit a true straight shot. Now when we hit the ball before the low point, and that's exactly what you want to do when the ball's on the ground, it's called hitting down on the ball. A descending attack angle of 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees, somewhere in that range with all your clubs is going to give you the best chance to strike the ball cleanly on the center or sweet spot of the club face before the club head runs into the ground. And so because you're striking before the low point, your club head is still traveling out to the right slightly. Again, remember the club head's changing directions the whole time. So as it moves down the plane through the impact zone, it's moving down relative to the ground, but also to the right relative to our target line. Again, only at the bottom would the club head be traveling parallel to the ground and the target line. After that, the sweet spot is traveling upward and inward or leftward. So if you're striking before the bottom of the arc and you want the club head to be traveling directly at the target at impact, then you need to shift this plane to the left relative to the target line. But then it's the exact same swing. You have a new swing line direction. So you're not always just swinging down the target line if you want to hit a perfectly straight shot. Now let's say, for example, you get the feedback to know that the path of the club head is too far to the left at impact, so you're maybe kind of coming over the top. Well, some people might say, well, should I just position the ball further back in the stance so the club head will be traveling a little bit more to the right when I get to the ball? And yes, that would be a way to change your path, but what if your angle of attack is already good? What if you're already hitting down 2 or 3 degrees nicely? The angle of attack is really something that you adjust for the vertical trajectory of the shot, and again, we need to be hitting down a little bit just to increase the likelihood of clean sweet spot impact. So if you have that, don't change that. What you need to change then, as your best way to change the path of the club head, which is the direction the club head's traveling at impact, is your intended swing plane line direction. To borrow a phrase from Martin Hall, I like to say, face it and trace it. It is your intended swing plane line direction. It's not always the target line. It needs to take into consideration the attack angle and also the type of ball flight you'd like to play. Maybe you're intentionally playing a fade, in which case this would have to be angled more to the left, or for a draw more to the right, but you choose that line relative to the target line. You face it with your body, so you have a frontal plane to your body. You should be in alignment with yourself, your ankles, your knees, your shoulders, all essentially facing and thus parallel to your intended swing plane line, and then you trace that plane line back, and most importantly, through the impact zone. So even if you were all over the place before you got to this point, you need to be in plane here. So every swing is in plane if it's a swing of any force. The question is, what's the direction of that swing plane? There's a requirement of that direction for the ball flight that you desire. To determine what your swing plane direction is, and thus the path of the club head, you could have a TrackMan that will help you with that, or you can read the ball flight to come up with relative truths regarding that, but you must give consideration to where the ball strikes the club face, because when you don't strike the sweet spot, the club face twists. That changes the starting direction of the ball flight as well as the spin axis or curvature that results.
Horizontal swing plane 0.0 degrees.